Alright, so in previous videos we've talked about saving money and how it's not exactly a good idea. Whether we're talking about the green stuff, physical cash, or the digital equivalent in a bank account as in a checking or savings account, it is still not a very good idea to save this. However, I know that this is a very confusing topic simply because I'm not sure about how you were brought up, but when I was growing up as a little kid, my parents told me all the time, save money, save money. You've got to save some money. Put some money away, save it. Well, here's the thing. Back in the day when I was a kid, 30 years ago, it was actually probably a really good idea to stick some cash away and actually save it. However, the game has changed as of recent. And here's why we want to talk about this, because it is a very confusing topic. It is completely contrary to what so many of us believe about money, right? We all think we should save money. Well, yes, kind of. It's true. We should have some money. But at the end of the day, we're actually losing purchasing power simply because of what is going on right now. Our dollars are becoming less and less, literally, every single day. So here's why this is happening. Because of all of the money printing that is going on right now, the massive amounts of money printing that is going on right now, it is simply depleting the purchasing power of our dollars every single day. So here's the thing. Let me give you a quick example. Let's just say today you go out and spend $1. The goods and services that you can buy with that $1 is getting you less and less compared to a year ago, compared to 5 years ago, compared to 10 years ago. Think of this, for example. Think of that $1. What could you buy for $1, say 10 years ago? Well, I don't really remember, but all I know is you could buy way more 10 years ago with $1 than what you can buy today for that same $1. Think about anything. When you go to the grocery store and you stand in a line, you know how the checkout lines always have the counters with the mints and the chocolates and the candy bars and the gum and all this other stuff that's there for you to buy? A while ago, 10 years ago, you probably could have bought just about anything on that rack for $1, 99 cents or less, right? Today, I think you're going to have a hard time finding anything on that rack for $1. You get my point? So the purchasing power of our dollars, the physical stuff or the digital stuff, as in our bank accounts, is becoming less and less every day simply because they're printing so much money right now. However, let's elaborate on this a little bit further. Now, here's one thing I do want to encourage. It would be very prudent, it would be very smart to have some reserves set aside. Maybe a few months worth of living expenses. Now, don't get me wrong. That is also very, very important because you don't want to get rid of all your money and then be like, uh-oh, we got into a situation like 2020 and I don't have anything to fall back on. So I do think that an emergency fund of some kind or having a little bit of liquid reserves, as in cash reserves in a bank account or physical cash, however you decide to hold it, I think that is a very good thing for at least a few months worth. However, anything above and beyond that, I think you got to figure out something better to do with your money rather than just let it sit around and just decay in a bank account. I don't think that's a great idea. But does that mean you should go out and spend it all on new clothes, a new car, new furniture, stuff like that? Again, no, I don't think that's a great idea either. But if you need all of those things, by all means, get what you need. But here's the thing. If you have a bunch of extra money, I don't think it should just be go out and just spend it on everything just because you have it, and I told you shouldn't save money. Now again, this is not financial advice, it's not investing advice, it is not advice at all. I'm just simply talking you through the things that I actually practice in my life and what I believe as far as how I approach these situations. Because I look at the situation from the standpoint of a realist. What is really going on right now? Well, what's really going on right now is they are printing tons of money. The dollars that we have in our pockets are becoming less and less. Therefore, I approach the situation thinking, okay, what can I do with this stuff? If it is losing value every day, what can I do with it to actually get it to hold its value and or possibly increase in value and or even multiply? Right? How can we get money to multiply? That is like the end game behind all of this. How can we get more money? How can we get money to make more money? Right? So let's talk through this a little bit further now. So here's the thing. You can save money, believe it or not, in a variety of different ways. Now, you might be thinking, I could save it in a savings account, I could save it in a money market account, I could save it in a checking account. True, all of that could be true. But my point is, you could actually save money, save cash, in multiple different ways. You could take cash. Again, this is not investing advice or any kind of advice at all. I'm just simply saying, just throwing out some ideas and just showing you can actually save money in a variety of different ways. Rather than actually saving physical cash or the digital kind in our bank accounts, we could take money and we could save it in the form of investing it in the stock market. So we could take that same amount of cash and invest it in something that'll actually help it grow and or multiply if that just so happens to be your objective. Maybe we invested in some kind of dividend-paying stocks where each and every quarter going forward, we get a dividend, as in a return on our initial investment, simply because we're invested in that stock. Maybe for some of you who are into the crypto game, maybe you decide, hey, I want to invest some of my cash reserves into crypto because crypto is incredibly volatile and it could multiply very quickly, or again, it could depreciate very, very quickly, as we know. So you got to be careful with that. You need to know what you're doing, but that goes with just about anything. Or maybe you decide, I want to take my cash and I want to save it in the form of real estate. Again, real estate is very different than stocks and crypto simply because it's not as liquid. You can't get in and out of real estate as quickly as you can the equity market, as in stocks or ETFs or even crypto. I mean, literally with those assets, you can, boom, snap your fingers. You can be in and out of those within literally seconds. You can get into a position, you can get out of a position very, very quickly and have liquidity. Whereas real estate, you can't really get in that fast and you can't really get out that fast. It's more like a couple of weeks at the very minimum and or a few months to get in and to get out totally if you just so wanted to do so. But you're also dealing with way bigger numbers, like typically a lot of money transactions, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars in most cases when you're buying houses. So here's the thing. Even though I'm saying don't save money in the form of cash, I am saying maybe take your cash reserves, if you just so happen to have some, and save it in a different form. Pile it into something else that may give you a better return on your investment, and or worst case scenario, it at least keeps up with inflation and it actually holds its value rather than just depleting like cash does. Does that make sense? So here's the thing. Like for example, historically the stock market goes up anywhere between about 7, 8, 9%-ish annually every single year. That is just like the historic average. Now again, some years it goes up 10, 20, 30% like we've seen recently. And some years we see it down 10, 15, 20% in some years. But historically, over very long periods of time, it usually averages anywhere between about 7 and 9%. Now again, with crypto, that's a totally different game, totally different animal. Depends on what you're talking about, but crypto could be all over the board. I mean, in the course of a couple weeks, you could be up 100% or more in some cases, or again, it goes both ways, right? You could be down significantly in that same period of time. Same thing with real estate. Real estate historically typically goes up. But again, think about like 2008, 2009. It's a dramatic price depreciation, right? It fell in price substantially. However, over very long periods of time with real estate, historically, it continues to go up anywhere between about 2 and 5 to 6% annually each and every year. Again, there's a lot of different factors that play into that, is in demographics, where in the country is it located, location is very important. There's a lot of other factors, as in, is the city growing, is the city declining in population, what's going on in that specific area. So there's a lot of different things that actually pertain to real estate, but historically, just kind of on average, anywhere between about 2 and 5 or 6%, something like that, would be kind of a national average, kind of across the board on an annual basis over very long periods of time when it comes to real estate. But the whole point of this whole story is, and by going into all these different details, is cash can be saved in multiple different ways. So rather than just piling it all into a bank account, you might actually want to think, how can I save cash, the cash equivalent, as in maybe buying equities, buying crypto, buying real estate. Maybe you want to buy precious metals like gold or silver. Maybe you want to buy palladium or platinum, things like this. Something that will always hold its value for the most part. Now here's the thing with like precious metals and or just metal investing in general. Gold, silver, platinum, palladium. I would say those are the 4 most common metals that many people invest in. Here's the thing with these. They're always going to have an intrinsic value. In other words, they're always going to be worth something. Maybe the value goes way up, maybe the value goes down, but ultimately at the end of the day, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, those metals will still be worth something. Gold will still have a collector's value. It'll still be used for jewelry. Silver will still have a consumable value, as in it'll still be used in electronics, cell phones, cars, things like that. It'll still have a consumable value. Palladium, again, they use that in cars. They use it in all kinds of stuff. Consumable metal. Platinum, again, can be used across the board for many different things. Jewelry would be another one of the main ones. But the point is, even if you have these metals, if you buy these and you use physical cash, as in, the green stuff to buy these things, you can hold these metals and ultimately they will still be worth something at many years out in the future, whereas the green stuff that we carry around in our pockets and in our bank accounts, realistically, is probably not going to be worth anything anywhere near what it's worth right now in 10, 15, 20 years. Again, it's going to continue depleting day after day, month over month, year over year. It'll continue depleting. So if you take that same $100, let's just use $100 for example. You have a $100 bill. Today, you go out and spend that $100 on goods and services. And you take those goods and services, let's just say it's goods, for example. You spend $100 on canned foods, for example. You stock all those canned foods away for 10 years. You come back in 10 years and you take that same $100 and you go out and buy the same canned goods. Do you think you can get the same amount of canned goods as you could today as you can in 10 years from now with that same $100? I'd be willing to bet you, no, not even close, not a chance. You might be able to buy the same amount of cans, but I bet you almost anything, the serving sizes are smaller and or the cans are smaller or the prices, significantly higher. Something is going to be different. It's not going to be the same price in 10 years from now as it will be right here today. And the same holds true for 10 years ago. What could you buy in the canned soup aisle 10 years ago for $100? You could probably buy all kinds of cans, right? You could probably buy all kinds of stuff. It probably was really fun. I mean, if that happened again today, you'd be like, whoa, everything is 50% off. This is great. I'm going to buy all kinds of stuff. But of course, it's just going to continue at the same trajectory that it is going forward, as in our money is becoming worth less and worth less, which is why I'm saying in one of my previous videos, I held up a $100 bill and I said, this stuff is worthless. It literally is. It's becoming worthless because they're printing so much of it. So previously back in the day, prior to 1971, gold was actually tied to, dollars were actually tied to gold, as in the gold standard, right? So every dollar was tied to a fraction of an ounce of gold. But no longer, in 1971, Richard Nixon took the dollar off of the gold standard. Therefore, dollars are basically just paper or linens that they print, and it's just infinite supply. They can print as many dollars as they ever would want in the whole world. I mean, they could print $5 trillion this year if they just so wanted to do so. Doesn't really matter. They can print as much as they want. They could print a quadrillion dollars. They could print $1 quintillion. Doesn't really matter. There's no limit. However, when dollars were actually tied to the gold standard back prior to 1971, you couldn't really do that, simply because dollars were tied to gold. Therefore, if you wanted to print more dollars, you had to get more gold in order to back it up, right? Does all that make sense? So anyway, the point is, you can save dollars, but you may want to consider saving dollars in a different form rather than actually physical green and or in a savings or checking account. If you save it in a different form, you may actually be able to combat this inflation and all of the depletion of the dollars. Therefore, in 5 years, 10 years, maybe 20 years, you can come back to those same dollars and realize, hey, I bought a house for $200,000 in 2021, and here I am in 2031, 10 years later, and now the house is worth $300,000. It has appreciated 50% in value. Well, it's not so much that it's appreciated in value, but rather our dollars have just depreciated in value, therefore making you just hold your dollars in a different form, and they're still worth about the same as what they were, right? Just because inflation is running so hot. Does all this make sense? So, hope this kind of gets you thinking a little bit about some different ideas. There's a lot of different ways that you can deploy dollars out there to actually save them in a different form. But I would say holding them in the green stuff or in a bank account is probably the worst thing that we could do, with the exception of some kind of emergency funds, as in having a little bit of money set aside is probably a pretty good idea for at least a few months worth. I would always advocate to say that at a very minimum. But then again, anything above and beyond that, you might want to consider some other ways that you can actually store that money so that it actually holds its value rather than just depleting day after day, decaying in value, right? So hope this gets you thinking a little bit. Subscribe right down below the video. I'm back every single day in multiple different videos talking about all kinds of different stuff. If you like the sound of this, I have multiple different videos right here on the channel. Feel free to check out the other videos here on the channel and or the playlists that I have. But yeah, pretty cool stuff. But I hope this gets you thinking at a very minimum. Just start thinking about all this stuff and kind of realizing, oh, you know, that kind of makes sense. What I can buy today for the same $1 is significantly less than what I could buy 5 or 10 years ago for that same $1, right? So anyway, hope this makes you think. Enjoy the video. Thanks again for watching this. I really appreciate it. Subscribe down below, and I will see you again in the next one.